What's interesting about this research is it points to the benefit of self-efficacy. In the book that I wrote about character, I identified the most important character qualities to teach children, and they are gratitude, joy, and self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a belief that I am capable of doing what I've been asked to do.
It probably goes without saying that chores are really a good part of family life, but they do something for kids too. How do we take a step and give our kids chores and responsibilities in a way that doesn't feel like a burden to them and maybe to us? Well, today in the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, Dr. Kathy is going to unpack this for us and give us some good insight. So let's turn now to Dr. Kathy Cook.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
Dr. Kathy, Rebecca Schraff, she's at the University of Virginia Medical School, and she's a pediatrician who's investigating how kids respond and progress and do when they have daily chores in their home. Her team studied this and found that children who were doing chores often, or very often, as the survey went on to ask, they were more likely to have a sense of capability or to have a sense of being able to do things in the future more than children who were doing their chores rarely or never, according to their survey. The chores that they looked at were from kids in kindergarten or first grade, and then they did an assessment of those students at third grade with the outcomes that these children self-reported. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Kathy, as we start in on this, what are your thoughts or opinions on kids doing chores and what it does for them?
I hope the parents listening will like my answer. Children need to do chores. Absolutely. They need to participate in the family. You're a member of the family, and you're an important member of the family. And now that you're 6, you get to learn how to do this. Like, make it a big deal to them that on their 6th birthday, they're now capable, because they're taller, of maybe, or more mature, of maybe doing something a little bit differently. So I'm a huge fan. What I find interesting here, well, 2 things. I would make this recommendation. I don't really like the word chore. Like, if you look it up in a dictionary, it is not a pleasant word. I don't want to do chores. I like the word responsibilities. Good friends of mine who are raising beautiful children have given them all responsibilities. It's a good word. It's a good noun, and it creates responsible children, right? Which is a character quality that I highly value in the book I wrote about character. So call them responsibilities. So Junior, have you done your responsibility today? Katie, have you fulfilled your responsibility today? Betsy, do I need to remind you of your responsibility? Sounds very different, in my opinion, from the word chore. So I would like us to use the word responsibility. What's interesting about this research is it points to the benefit of self-efficacy. In the book that I wrote about character, I identified the most important character qualities to teach children, and they are gratitude, joy, and self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a belief that I am capable of doing what I've been asked to do. And it leads to first-time obedience. Self-efficacy, again, I'll repeat it. Self-efficacy is believing I can do what I've been told or asked to do. And it leads to first-time obedience. So if you've been told to empty the trash, that is your responsibility, and you've been taught how to do it, how to lift the one wastebasket with 2 hands and pour it into the one that's bigger, whatever. Like, I have a family where the 5-year-old boy on the basement level of the home empties all of the wastebaskets, the small wastebaskets in the children's bedrooms, into the biggest wastebasket on that floor. And then an older child lifts that up.
Dr. Kathy, we often don't really have our kids do chores sometimes because they don't do them right. And I don't know if this is true for other parents, but there's some things in our house that we just we just need to have done efficiently and correctly, right? Like, sometimes kids don't load the dishwasher correctly, or sometimes I'm always wearing pink undershirts instead of white ones because they decided that they should do the laundry and we're trying to help them get it. But sometimes those risk factors end up just not really adding up for us. And so it's easier to not have our kindergartners do chores. What do you think chores should look like for kids, especially kids that are in this study, kids that are kindergarten, first grade, which I think might be actually a really great time to start building those muscles for doing chores, or maybe, like you say, have responsibilities? What should those look like for kids as they're stepping into that age where they're able to do more?
Yeah, I do agree that you can start when they're young. If you don't start when they're young, they're going to resent it more when you add it to them. Well, I only turned 7. I didn't mean to get old enough to be helpful, you know? No, you're helpful because this is what family does. Your mom does this, I do this, and you get to. You don't have to, you get to. You teach it as a privilege and you make it clear that it is a privilege. In some families, you give choices. You know, if you have 3 or 4 kids in similar ages, you could have a go fish pile, and this week they picked the garbages. My little friend Max, he gets to do the garbages, or one kid might pick, setting the table or sweeping out the kitchen or whatever. So you could give choices if you want. Certainly age appropriate. If they're not tall enough, they don't get to do things. Clearly, don't be foolish here and let young children work with glasses, and et cetera. And I do think you can consider their smarts. If you have somebody who's body smart and they think by movement and touch and they are coordinated, they're good on the soccer field, then those are the kids that can set the table and take dishes to the sink and help you by sweeping out the garage. So you could consider, the way that they're gifted in that way. And whatever we choose, we have to teach them, not just tell them. They've maybe been watching you for a while. Maybe they haven't, but they don't, just because they've watched doesn't mean that they get to do it. By the way, here's an analogy. If I'm a passenger in a car, even if we go to the same place over and over again, and then I need to drive there, I don't necessarily know how to get there. Because although I was a passenger in the car, I didn't need to pay attention, so I wasn't paying attention. So just because your kids are in the home with you, it doesn't mean that they know how to do what you want them to do. So teach them and then coach them by dividing it into smaller details, and be a really good cheerleader, pointing out the things that they've done well, focus on the positives so that they don't freak out, reteach when they've made mistakes, be the referee, call sin, sin, call laziness, laziness, and irresponsibility, irresponsibility. And then teach them how to correct so that they can be successful in the future.
I love that, Dr. Kathy. But it kind of leads me to this other thought that I have, and that's the reality that for me, I'm not hyper structured. And so this idea of having my kids have daily responsibilities means I have to be extra attentive to their schedule and maybe extra attentive to their responsibilities. It adds another weight on my day where I could just easily take another 30 minutes and do the dishes myself or what have you. I think that kind of, though, goes hand in hand with some of us who might be really structured. And it might be hard for us to let someone, quote unquote, learn on the job as they're working through their daily responsibilities in the house. Why do we need to have a better attitude about responsibilities and chores as parents when we look at it like this? What should we think about maybe chores and responsibilities in maybe a reframed way, really more than even just doing the task at hand of picking up or vacuuming or washing the dishes, but it's doing something else? Is there a way that we need to reframe this for ourselves?
It's challenging, isn't it? And chances are pretty good that the person who's, the big picture person who doesn't pay attention to details is married to somebody who loves all the details. And it can be actually, it can be a blessing, and it can also be, I'm sure, a point of tremendous conflict. Here's what I'm going to say, and that is that chores are about the child, not about the task. You assign these responsibilities, or you give them opportunities to mature up and be able to fulfill responsibilities around the home. You do that for them, because they're going to gain self-efficacy, where they're going to believe they can do something, and it's going to change their view of themselves. They're going to discover that they are a meaningful member of the family. They're the one that went out to the curb and got the mail out of the mailbox and handed it to mom. Like, that was so cool that I got to do that. Let them revel in that. It's about them growing and maturing and discovering what they're capable of, and discovering that they can contribute to the wellness of the family. It is not about how well they do the task. And I say that. Now, I would expect that we would look for growth. Are they getting, is it becoming easier? Are they more efficient? Are they doing it without as many reminders? Yes, absolutely look for growth. And this is when we reteach, because we care about them learning so they feel good about themselves. And ultimately, the month or two when they're learning something new, yes, it's going to take more effort on the parent's part. The goal is that ultimately you don't have to think about it, because when I get home from school, this is the first thing I do. And they do it because it becomes a part of their routine. And now you actually have more free time. That's the dream, right?
I love what Dr. Kathy and I had a chance to talk about today. It reminded me of a passage that comes out of Nehemiah chapter 3, and I'll begin reading at verse 1. Eliashib, the high priest, and his fellow priests went to work and rebuilt the sheep gate. They dedicated it and set its doors in its place, building as far as the Tower of Hundred, which they dedicated, and as far as the Tower of Hanel. The men of Jericho built the adjoining section, and Zachar, son of Imri, built next to them. The fish gate rebuilt by the sons of Hanassah. They laid its beams and put its doors and bolts in place. Miramoth, son of Hariah, the son of Hakaz, repaired the next section. These stories come as Nehemiah was rebuilding the broken wall of Jerusalem. Rather than taking on the task alone, he organized families and individuals to repair specific sections of the wall. As we read, different men took on different sections with their families, showing that everyone from priests to goldsmiths to actually daughters had a part in building the wall. Nehemiah didn't say, "I'll do it all by myself." Instead, he invited others to work with him, assigning responsibility and affirming their part in something bigger than themselves. And they were building protection and identity for their city. I think that assigning chores isn't just about getting things done. It's actually about forming an identity and belonging for kids. Kids need to know that their work matters. Just like families helped rebuild the wall together with Nehemiah, families today can rebuild peace and order, not just in their homes, but also in their community, by working side by side. When kids do chores, they're not just helping, they're shaping the kind of family that they belong to. And I think giving them that identity and that sense of belonging can be a bright light that shines and cuts through some of the darkness and uncertainty that they're going to face in the world today. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast, this daily segment Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. We're so glad you're listening with us this week, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.